Yeah.
Hello, today I'm with Espoir from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and today he is
Hi.
telling us his water story from the perspective of a refugee. Thank you so much. Take it away.
Hey, Joy. How are you doing today? I'm so excited to be here today and participate to this interview about water, especially on the refugee perspectives, how water has been affecting refugees. Because I have been a refugee and I know and I'm ready to share my story with the world about water, how water has affected refugees around the world. Yeah.
So go ahead and tell us about any specific experiences of stories from water or how water has become very valuable when it's very scarce. Anything that comes to mind.
Well, for most people, water is just like they just take it for granted. And for others, water is life. Water is the source of everything. Um, Growing up in a third country, Republic Democratic of Congo, and I could face my family and I could face not only my family and I, but also the village itself. We were closer to the river, but we couldn't, have access to clean water. So we were like forced to um to drink water from the river directly that I had a lot of bacteria. People will only assume that it's clean because that the only water that was available to us, you know. And also we when my family and I fled our country going to Kenya, I didn't expect the same experience, because it was in another country. So I was expecting like things to improve. But I was wrong because that was a major problem. That's when I realized that water is a major problem, not only for a specific village or country or certain group of people, but water is a problem to a global stage now because you can leave your country and think that the problem of water is only affecting your country, but that's not true. When you move outside of your country, when you move outside your village, you find that there are other people who are suffering to get clean water. So to keep this talk short, I want to share deeply, especially I want to focus on this interview, how water affected refugees, because I was a refugee for about 8 years. And I have a lot to share about, water and how has been affecting refugees community, especially for the people who live in camps, you know. We couldn't get water, clean water, easily because the camp was had more than 400,000 people. And when you imagine that water to get water that will feed 400,000 people, it's not that easy from the money that is not from the government or whatever, just donations. It's not that easy. So the UNHCR committed itself to provide as best as they can with other partnering organizations, at least to get clean water for the refugees. And we could get like 2 barrel of water to drink as clean water, and also like um uh, uh water in the dam. We could put, okay, let me I don't know how I can explain this. For most people, don't really understand the tools, the local tools that are we use to store water. Uh, but we could get water in the morning, and everyone could wake up in the morning going to the tap because you will find one community having only one tap of water, and you have to share that tap. Um, Everyone has to get at least uh, 20 liters or 40 liters of water that is going to use for the whole day. And imagine now, like us, we were 10 people getting 20 to 40 liters. You have to clean, you have to cook, you have to clean you have to do dishes, you have to clean your clothes, you have to drink, and also have water, in the house, for storage. So that one was not enough. And that led us um, to eliminate some of the activities like washing clothes. So we could only wash clothes at least twice a month. And that one was crazy. Uh, some Sometimes we couldn't even wash dishes, so we repeat the same dirty dishes that we used. We repeat them because we are trying to prevent water, and that affected us. That made people sick in the camp, and they were affected deeply by a shortage of water in the camp. Yeah, it's crazy how the world today are facing water crisis.
Wow. So hearing about how you had such water shortages and how everyone
Mm.
had to use the same water source, is water something more that you consider now as a really precious resource? Do you think about it a lot in your daily life, even though you're not a refugee anymore?
Well, um, I always prevent water, and sometimes my aunt gets even upset because I don't want to see any drop of water coming out that is not going to be used. Even taking shower now, I take shower with some precautions. Like I don't need like to waste a lot of water. You may find some people like opening the tap in the water bath, whatever it is, and they leave water, splitting everywhere, and I get upset for that. When I see someone like wasting water, I get upset. Generally, I get upset. I get upset because I know some people um, are struggling to get water, and others are just taking it for granted. I always feel like, hey, if you know what you are doing, if you could know what you are really doing, you couldn't be, wasting this water. I personally share some stories behind, it for people to understand because not everyone can really understand, you know. Um, I have to share how other people are suffering to get water, and they always get inspired. Yeah,
Yeah, recently I heard this phrase that was people or children who have only seen war and children who have only seen peace have completely different mindsets or something like that. And I think it's the same
exactly.
with water. Most of the people who grow up with water insecurity know it as their lifestyle, and people who have too much water or abundance of water end up wasting a lot.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think,
exactly. The same perspective work also uh in the terms of peace. When you grow up, in a peaceful country and whatever, you always think that a war is just a story. But when it affects you, that's when you really know that hey, when I see people fleeing their countries, then there is something wrong. Yeah.
yeah, but water shortages are a really, really big issue. Can I ask a little bit more? I want to know about like the underground storage system you're talking about, like for how you store water.
Well, it's a it's a method that we use in Africa. Sometimes we will, dig and put something like a tent, you know. So because we don't have those big containers to store water, then we will store water in. So we construct it as a sink, you know, where then we put like a tent. Then when we pour the water over there, can stay for like 1 or 2 days without,
Wow.
seeing it, whenever we need water, we will not go to the tap because there is no water. It came only for 1 or 2 hours or 3 hours. And then if you didn't get time to store your own water at home, then you will struggle. You will have to travel like 2 to 3 miles, and you will go, to beg any nearest police stations because for them they do have water regularly. So you will have to go and beg for water at police stations, and that was crazy, you know. In order to get water to travel like 2 or 3 miles, water that are for other people is always available. Is a basic right, you know, human rights. Basically, water is a basic human right. But imagine you struggling for 2 or 3 miles in order to get water. So when you get it, you will, take care of it. You will not take it for granted. Yeah.
I know. I understand. I want to ask one last question. With climate change making water more scarce, how do you think it has impacted refugee communities? Like, if there's more water scarcity, has there been more conflict across water? Is water rare to see? I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, um, climate change has affected refugees in terms of water also because flood, you know, um, we now have people who are refugees, not because their country was affected by war or, conflict or whatever, but because they had to flee their homes because of flood, you know, and the maybe the heavy rain comes and wrap all their properties, stocks, and whatever. So they are now forced to leave their home countries and seek a better place outside of their home countries. And that is number one. And it's a serious issue because if people are not, taking care of the environment, we will end up having also more people who will be fleeing their home countries, leaving their home countries because of you know, the disaster of climate change. And in in the camp, like where I lived in Kakuma refugee camp, it's an arid area. So we used to get rain um once or twice a year. And when it comes, it's like a flood. Recently, one of my friends told me that he lost his child because now when it is flooding, kid doesn't even know that it's dangerous. So they went out and they start playing in those dark water, you know. So what happened is that after the kid coming from school, so there was like water after flood, some stagnant water we find everywhere. And they decided to go and take shower, in those mud, you know, water that is just outside. So when they went, it's like they've never experienced those things. So whenever they see water just outside, they don't even know if it is dangerous or not. So they take advantage of it. They feel like, this is the best place now to swim. This is the best place like to take shower, deep shower, you know. So when they went with other friends, without knowing, he went direct and get into that water, and there was mud inside. So the child got stuck inside, and because they were all children, so they couldn't really understand first what is happening. Then after a while, they saw that their friend is not coming out of that dirty water. So that's when they realized that there is something wrong. They started screaming, and it was too late, you know. And it was so sad to hear that story that, hey, look, the flood washed away some houses in the camp, but still, killing children. And that is so sad that people now are losing their lives, especially kids and also animals, because of the impact of the climate change that is making every single day. So eh, I argue everybody to take care of this environment issues, take care of, you know, protecting our earth, because it's crazy of what is happening. If you don't really know, you are just getting stories. When it happened to you, that's when you will really understand that, hey, this has to be taken seriously. Yeah.
I definitely agree. I think that it's not enough to only give exposure to these things. You have to act. And
Mm,
it's too late if something happens to someone you know. You should be doing it just because this problem exists. Well,
mm,
thank you so much for sharing such a powerful story with regards to water. You're a wonderful advocate for refugee rights. And it's such an
mm.
honor to talk to you, Espoir.
Thank you so much, Joe, and it has been my pleasure today talking to you. And I hope to meet with you and talk more about refugees' life and how water is needed for refugees community around the world. And one of my message is that, to the world, anyone who is, being affected by the climate change, disaster, or lack of clean water, is that we need to raise awareness. We need to raise awareness. Now we have social media platforms. We need to post as much as we can so people get to know what is happening and how people are being affected by water and drawn out, around the world. Thank you so much, Joe. It was a pleasure to have me to this meeting.